Okay, I can see a few people joining. We're just waiting for more people to join and then we'll get started soon. If you are joining just now and you haven't been to any of the sessions, please drop a comment in the chat box. Tell us where you're joining from and just say hello. Okay, I can see a few people joining from India, Nigeria. Hi everyone. Got London in the house. Hi everyone. We've got Cambridge. We've got also Uruguay. Clearly got everyone across the world. Hi everyone, I hope everyone's having a good evening. Yes, someone's just asked a question about if there is kind of connection glitches, will you have access to the recording? Yes, the session will be recorded, and the details on when that will come out soon. Hope that answers your question. Okay, I think a few people have joined now, and we'll get ready to start. So, welcome everyone to our 6th workshop from the Skills Workshop. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. For those of you who are joining for the first time, welcome. So the Skills Workshop was created in partnership with 60 different firms to give you the skills, knowledge, and insight that you need to prepare for a career within asset management. All the sessions are free to register, so if you haven't registered for the remaining sessions, please do. They were created for students, with students, to help with the application process. And the details on how you can register will be put in the chat box, so please do check that out. Just to start off, I am your host, Rashida Aquino. Just a bit about myself. I'm currently an infrastructure debt analyst, where I support my team to write investment papers, analyze financial models, and also do some research on infrastructure projects such as kind of trains, wind, solar, fiber, etc. Just as a background, I recently rolled off the Aviva graduate scheme where I had 2 rotations in the global financial crime scheme, the global financial crime team, and the finance business partnering team. And I joined that program in 2019, but graduated in 2017 as a bit of a background. So in between there, I was just doing a few retail jobs and worked in the fintech industry, and also just volunteered and traveled within that period. So for this session, I'm really excited to be here. At this period now, I think everyone's done with exams. So again, congratulations on finishing your exams. And our application processes for the asset management industry are going to open in maybe approximately 2 weeks. So this is our last of our practical sessions in August before the applications open. So we wanted to put this on so you're all equipped and ready to go in September. In today's session, we're going to cover cover letters and CVs, how you should kind of structure your CVs, how to approach writing it, what you should include, and also we're going to touch on technological advances in video interviews and how to tackle those. And of course, as always, we're here to give you some tips and tricks for you to use. And as we're going on, I just had to note that we do have an amazing opportunity for everyone who has signed up to the skills workshop, where you will get your CV and your cover letters reviewed for free. Yes, I did say it for free, so remember that. It will be reviewed on a one-to-one basis. The details will be communicated via email soon. So we just wanted to give you the best chance of succeeding in the application process. Hence, we've been able to offer this service, and it will be your CVs and cover letters will be looked at by industry experts in order for you to get feedback. And just to a reminder, we will communicate everything via email, so please do look out for that email, especially your spam box as well. And just with that said, I would like to start our CV session. I'm just going to introduce our wonderful speakers today, who are undoubtedly experts in this field, Upi and Jin. If I could ask Upi to go up first, please do introduce yourself and just tell us about yourself.
Hi, thank you so much for that, Rashida. So my name is Upi, and I actually was on a graduate scheme 15 years ago. So I'm kind of the old one in the group, I guess. But I actually was in a graduate scheme in a recruitment company. So I've seen it from a completely different side of the fence. So I've worked with the investment industry for the last 15 years. So I'm an executive headhunter. I am also a diversity and inclusion consultant. I go into corporates and I help them create more inclusion in their culture and also in their people strategy. And I'm also a non-exec director for a Gen Z focused recruitment tech startup. I'm ambassador for the Diversity Project. This is how I'm here. And I'm also an ambassador for Interinvest, which looks at the experience of the LGBT community within the investment industry. And I'm on a mission to co-create a more diverse and inclusive world, and I founded 2 businesses. So Career Collective is a executive search consultancy and DEI consultancy, and Kaleido, which is a job board and talent pool focused on creating more representation within the industry. And that's me. So I'll pass it over to Chin.
Wow, so I have a lot to live up to right now, but I'm gonna go next. My name is Chinmay Thadakamala. Do not worry, you can call me Chin. I know it's a very long name. So a little bit about myself. I actually started working as soon as I finished sixth form because I wanted to get that experience, get that money to sort of fund some of my outside ventures as well. So I joined JP Morgan, where I joined their Young Talent Scheme straight after sixth form. So believe me when I say that since I was 16, CVs and cover letters have literally been haunting me. And I've seen sort of the whole life cycle of me starting my CV with a personal statement and a case study up to now, where I think is somewhat decent. So hopefully we can shed some light on some of the do's and don'ts, and you can learn from some of my past mistakes so you don't make them yourselves. So shortly after JP Morgan, at my time on the emerging markets desk, I went on to a recruitment firm where I was helping their asset management, insurance, and building their fintech practice. And I now work in executive search at Sainty Hurd and Partners, who are an executive search and management consultancy, where I work on their front office equity sales and trading, and insurance and asset management space. So that's a little bit about me. I'm also very, very passionate about diversity and inclusion, also an ambassador for the Diversity Project, which is why I'm here today. And on the side, I'm very passionate about creative arts. So that is me.
Thank you so much, Jen. I think now we know who we all are, we can get started on the session. Just as a note, if you do have any questions, please pop it in the Q&A function. This is a webinar, so we will not see your faces, so please do drop the questions in and do interact within the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, great. So myself and Chin are going to take you through the session for today, and we're going to split it between us, but we'll just come in, you know, we've both got experience within this industry. We work exclusively with the investment clients that you're probably all applying to in the next few months. So we will have a good sense. We've probably between us looked at, I don't know, thousands, if not 20,000, 40,000 CVs probably in our career. So lots and lots. So hopefully we'll be able to give some insight. So what we're going to go through today is the importance of a CV. So why are we even here? What are we doing here? The CV and the cover letter, what's the point? What is in a good CV? So we're going to take you through some do's and don'ts. What is in a cover letter? Some do's and don'ts. And then we're going to look at the next, and kind of just a little bit of a foray into what's next in terms of CVs and cover letters in this space of you know, I think you probably touched on it last week with the application process, and we'll just tell you from our perspective what we're seeing as well. Right, so let's get the session started. So I'm going to, so something I always say is your CV is essentially an elevator pitch on paper. So it's basically your way to tell the person you are trying to attract, in this instance for a job, everything about you in 5 seconds. Literally, it's, you know, I think there's a stat that it's 6 seconds that a recruiter will look at a CV. It probably is that. I think myself and Chin from our kind of conversations, we take a little bit longer. We make sure we read through what we need to read through. But typically, that's how much, you know, especially if someone's reviewing 500 CVs at a time, it can be quite taxing. So we take information. So this is your opportunity to really capture that person. So quick bit of trivia for you. Does anybody know what this is? I don't know if let me try and pull up the chat and see if anybody knows what this is. First ever CV. Thank you, Priyesh. Exactly. And does anybody know who wrote the first ever CV? Yeah, exactly. So it's Leonardo da Vinci was credited as creating the first ever resume, and it was in 1482, and essentially it was him talking about his skill set on paper and explaining why he is a good candidate, and that was to the Duke of Milan when he was seeking employment. So a little bit of trivia for you there. Okay, so between, let's just go through, should we go through some of these questions together, Chin? Yeah. So what do you think is the purpose of a CV? So someone to answer in the chat, what do you think the purpose of a CV is? Anybody? See how you fit in. Yeah. Showing you fit the role, communicating your skills, beautiful. Yeah. Demoing your skills, highlighting your skills, introducing yourself, background, showcase, sell yourself. Yes, all of this, all of it, exactly. To give the reader a sense of who you are, which would lead to an interview. Exactly. So it's a way to explain, who am I? Who am I on paper, basically, is your CV. And that's why we're here, because we want all these fabulous companies to know exactly who you are and why they need you in their company. And that's the best thing, why they need you in their company. Okay. So I'll give the next question to Chin, if you want to take it over.
Great. So how long does everyone think your CV needs to be? Fun fact, my first one was 5 pages long, and that is the wrong answer. 1 to 2 pages, 1 pages. Yeah, I think depending on experience, I would say 1 page, especially if you're a grad. I think for some of the senior roles, it can go up to 2 pages. Would you agree, Upi?
I would say, yeah. And so for the level that I think we operate in at the very senior level, at like, you know, managing director, CEO level, it's sometimes a full profile, right? And it's sometimes like 6 to 7 pages, but then that's other things, and there's other pieces of kind of projects and outcome and all of that, case studies that come into it. So on average, at a graduate level, 1 page, okay? And at a senior, kind of in your mid-career, I'd say 5 to 8 years, you don't want more than 2 pages. And then beyond that, you know, maybe if you go up to 3 pages, I would cap it at that, unless and then, you know, you get to work with someone like us and we'll create a wonderful profile for you. So
I actually add a quick fact, actually. So when I was working at JP, I actually had the opportunity to review some of the CVs and cover letters of candidates applying for the next rotation. And this might sound brutal, but it's the truth. But anyone who had over 1.5 pages long was automatically rejected. So it does show how important it is to make sure that you keep your CV to at least just 1 page long.
Brilliant. And so can anybody name different sections that would be in a CV? What do you think there should be in a CV? Oh, look, we've got them ready to go. Brilliant. Experience, volunteering. Lovely. I don't have that on my list. Contact info, education, work experience, personal statement. Harvard format, skills, leadership experience, skills, education experience, languages, lovely. Personal details. Great.
Experience, hobbies.
Causes. Okay, I think you mean by personal, maybe values and things like that. Okay, positions of responsibility. Lovely. That's all true. We're going to go through all of that now. Okay, so I think I gave you the answer to this already, but how long will the average recruiter spend reading your CV? I think between us, someone thought it was 24 seconds. Okay. What's your answer, Chin, to that?
Unfortunately, that would be cheating because Rashida already told me the answer. So
it's 6 seconds. That's the kind of the thing. It's 6 seconds, 3 minutes. Oh, I wish we had sometimes, 3 minutes. I think it does depend on your level. And actually a lot of the screening, and I think this is something that's really, really important to understand. So all of the organizations you will apply to, whether it's in the industry or in another sector, they use ATS systems, the application tracking system. So when you go onto their website, it will normally take you over to another website, and there you will put your details and everything like that. And those systems will scan your CV and match it. So there are some organizations that will look at every single CV, yeah? And then there are some that will be fed through this program. So if you apply for a role on LinkedIn, it will be fed through the tech, and the tech will highlight. It will show the recruiter every single CV, but it will highlight the ones that match the CV based on the content of the CV. And that's why we're having this session with you, okay? I know it's absurd, Leo, but I can guarantee you there are lots of recruiters that do not do that. We do not spend just 6 seconds. But I can be really honest here. And the reason that I do the D&I work that I do so now is because I realized that actually I probably was one of those recruiters. I was trained to be biased in the way that I recruited. And it was only me understanding, actually, I'm part of the problem. And then I decided to become part of the solution. So there are people like us that will look through a CV and will make sure, actually, what is it this person is trying to tell us? And make sure that we get that across. Okay, let's move across. Otherwise, we're not going to have any time to tell you all the wonderful things we need to tell you. So I'm going to go through the CV structure, and Chin will take you through the cover letters, okay? So CV structure. This is kind of your basic CV structure of what you're looking to have. And at your level, this is perfectly what you need to try and remember to include, okay? So your full name, okay? Normally what's on your passport is probably what I would say to have. If there are lots of middle names and things like that, then you don't need to have that, but you'll need to declare that at some point. If you do get employment, it will need to be, your registered name. Your phone number, so a mobile phone number that you feel the most comfortable in giving out. An email address. Something really important to note is really professional email. It takes you a second to have your name, your surname @gmail.com or whatever platform you want to use. Try not to have anything that maybe you had and you created when you were 13. like I used to have. Don't do that. And we used to always have full address. It was everything. You don't need to do that, okay? So just state the location. So what town are you in? What city are you in? What, part of the city are you in? That's it. Just the city is fine, and maybe the country, depending on if you're applying for a global role or something, or a remote role. But I would just literally, so for myself, I'd have my name, I'd have my phone number, my email, and I'd have London. That's it, okay? Profile summary, I think Chin is going to take you through a lot of that content of what you could include in that. It will come up through the cover letter, and that will be like a snapshot of this profile summary. So I'll let her talk you through that section. But your profile summary should be on your CV. I'm going to show you some examples, and probably just a paragraph, okay? I've seen CVs where it's half the page. And in all honesty, you've got to understand that who is reading your CV. It's probably a recruiter. If it's going directly to a company, that person has probably had thousands of applications for these graduate roles, and they're having to read through lots and lots and lots. So you want to make sure it's as snappy as possible, and it captures exactly what you want to say without too much jargon or too much unnecessary wording. So bullet points is a really good way to kind of really nicely and succinctly get your points across of who you are. Your education, so chronological reverse, which means that you start from, so if we were doing it now, let's say we start from 2001. So if we had 2 years of experience, we'd have 2001 to 2002, 2002 to 2019, okay? And if we had internships or whatever it would be, we'd have it in that order. So you start with the most recent, and then you do chronologically in reverse. You do the same with your education, okay? So education should be your most senior, instead of starting, with your, let's say, I'm doing the UK format. So if it was your GCSEs, then your A levels, then your degree, then a master, PhD, whatever you may have, may not have, you would start with the masters, then the degree, then the A levels and the GCSEs, okay? And I'll show you some examples of how you can put that on. Relevant experience. So if you have relevant experience, it's good to have that on your CV. I actually would like to ask Rashida, because obviously she said she did some roles that were out of the industry. Did you keep them on your profile when you sent your CVs for your applications?
Sorry, so did I keep my internship, sorry, on? I think I did, but I'm trying to think back to 2019. I think I kept one on just because it would have been a lot longer than I needed it to be, but I had to put in the relevant experience, and more so any fintech ones was stayed in, even though I had one that maybe had an amazing name. If it wasn't relevant and it just wouldn't have added any substance, I had to drop it out.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. So that's exactly it. So I think I probably would have done that too, even though it was completely irrelevant to the roles I was going for. But actually I worked in a retail store, but it was sales, it was management, it was team leading. So I included it because of those skills, and I talked about those in my CV, my first ever CV. So I think it's important to think about it from that perspective. So what is relevant to the role, okay? And then technology and other skills. Think about your tech, whatever you may be. If you've got, C#, SQL, any programming language that you've got, or anything that you've used, anything that would be useful. If somehow you've worked on maybe like a trading system, like Aladdin or something like that. If you have any interaction with any of that, I would put that in. And then other skills, so languages, any other, if you've done any leadership courses, or maybe you've taken the IMC or something like that. If you have any other skills or qualifications, I would add those on for sure. And then memberships. So communities that you might be a member of, or you might be an ambassador for a charity, or you might do something that you were really, really passionate about at university or at school, or you led, the student paper or something. I would have that under memberships interest over there. And then of course your references. Now you could just write at the bottom, references available on request. You can list out your references of who they are and their details on the CV, or you can literally just put references available on request so that people know that you can get a reference if needed. Okay, so I want you to remember to use clear headings when we're talking about each section. So clearly for each section. So profile, what's included. Education, underline it, bold it, and then have that. So a really clear format is brilliant, because if it's really hard to see, it's different fonts and everything like that, it can be quite jarring when you're reading it, and you won't spend as long as a recruiter on a CV that actually is quite hard visually to understand. So use a really clear font. I always say Arial is a great font to use. 11 point is the perfect kind of font size. Use the reverse chronological format, like I said. Always ask someone to sense check and spell check it for you, okay? Get someone to read it through someone in your family or a friend or a careers advisor, whoever it may be, one of your friends who's going through the same process. Read each other, share it, meet someone on the end of this call and, try and get a group together maybe, or someone you've met during the program, and create and make sure you're just all making sure you're reading it, and you'll probably maybe, oh, someone's got something great on it, let me add that to mine too. Now, I know we've got a really global audience, which is wonderful. For the UK, we do not have CVs, photos on our CVs as standard. Some European and some Asian and some other parts of the world will use CVs on their profiles and their resumes. That's just a standard. So obviously do what works best for you in your location. But I would try and omit putting a photo on a CV. It kind of is sometimes distracting. It is also, you're putting in bias there, because people will judge you, unfortunately, the minute they see your picture, whether rightly, wrongly, positively or negatively, we don't know, but that will increase more chance of bias creeping in if you have your photo on it. And then you don't need to state, your marital status or your age or anything like that. Anything, clean driving license or your passport details, none of that. You don't need any of that on your CV. So do not put that. If the company wants to hire you, they will ask for all of those things in the reference checks and on the onboarding process. So they will need all of that, but not now. And then also, like I said, no funny email addresses. Try and be as professional as possible. So if we look at an example of a bad CV, so this is a terrible font, first of all, okay? It's got his full email address here. His email address is cool guy. He's got his full address. It's got marital status, gender, his date of birth. Don't need any of that on there, okay? Nationality. Sometimes you can put your nationality on your CV. Or sometimes it will be asked for on the part of the application process. So if you look at this, I'm a hardworking individual who enjoys working, okay? So some of this stuff is really obvious, okay? You don't need to do that. Then where he's put his nursery, you don't need your nursery or primary school or any details like that. You literally just need the places where you've gained qualifications. Put those on and that's it. You don't need anything else. And when you're putting your GCSEs, you don't need to write every single subject on. You can just write 7 A stars, whatever it may be, 7 Bs, whatever you've got, or whatever the points are now. So 7, 8, whatever it is. And then you can write, in maths or in English. Sometimes companies will like to know what you've got in those, and you can pick those out: science, maths, and English. If you see here, this person has put excellent communication skills, excellent management skills, great IT skills. It's great saying it, but I have no idea so we've got to show evidence of that, okay? We're going to go through what that means very quickly. So a good example of a CV, really lovely, clear format, really concise kind of barriers between. So I'm really clearly understanding these are the different areas of what this person has done. So it's really nicely laid out, really clearly has the person's name. It does have her address. Some people still leave their address on, or you could just put your location, and your mobile number and the email address. It's got a really nice personal profile. It's got some achievements that wanted to be marked out, which is great. It's really important when you're writing your CV. It's great to write what you do and what you've done in your career, but actually, what was the outcome? So say if you were leading a project even if it was just an internship and you were leading a project, okay? You have an internship that you did, or you did a year out placement and you had a brilliant project. tell me about that project. Tell me what you did in that project and what was the outcome of the project. Even if you were just a part of the project, what was the outcome? So what did you enjoy as well about it? So if you're going to give me evidence of your analysis skills, tell me how you were analyzing during your degree. What that is. So qualifications, really nicely, skills, really nicely laid out. Okay. So to create a CV with impact, you need to think about the company. What are their needs? Okay. You get that all from the job description. And that's why you should have your, I just saw what Jim said. By my own admission, this CV is way too long. That person has obviously has worked for a few years. So that's why their CV is a bit longer. If you're a graduate and maybe you've got a job that you had during university, or you have an internship or a year out or something like that, your CV won't be as long. So yeah, so it should be about a page. I would kind of look for a page. Okay. Okay, so how to create a CV with impact. What is the need? So the company will tell you exactly what they're looking for on the job description. So make sure you're paying really, really important and close analysis of that. Look through what they want. What are they telling you that they want for this role? And do you match that? And if you've done that, is your CV telling them that you've done that? Because if it's not on your CV, they're not going to know. Sorry. And like I said, a lot of these CVs get filtered through these tech tools. And when it goes through these AI tech tools, it literally picks it up on a Boolean search. So like how you would do Google, like a Google search, it will pick it up based on keywords. So you've got to be really clear. Okay, if what is in the job description, I don't want you to lie, but if you've got that experience, make sure it's being evidenced in your CV and you're talking about how you've got that experience and what that meant for you. So you need to think about what's your message, what is your skill set. So that's you bringing out, okay, actually, they're looking for someone with great analytical skills. I actually did lots of analysis during my dissertation at university. So bringing that together. So your evidence is that bringing that case study, if I did that at university, then your presentation is putting that in to writing it out in a really clear, easy, readable way. So if we look at this, okay, so your experience and skill set, the company's needs in terms of what is the job description telling you they want, and this middle bit is the CV sweet spot. That's the bit you want to be in. So I always say that you should have like a CV, which is your bones, okay? This is your framework of your CV. And with every single role, you need to adapt your CV because you need to make sure actually I'm telling the recruiter that actually I've got this skill set, and it might not be relevant for another role, but it might be relevant for another role that I applied for or another thing. So say if you're applying for lots of different grad programs and one is within the sales and marketing area of the business, evidence that your business development or your relationship management skills or your customer facing skills, whatever it might be, then you might be applying for one in a technology team. Tell me about how analytical you are. Tell me about the data mining you did during your university dissertation. Think about things like that, okay? And then, so this is the evidence of skills on a CV, okay? So evidence gives your message impact and credibility. Use examples from education and from your interests if you obviously don't have it yet from your work experience. So exactly that. The skill, they might have been saying that they want someone who's highly analytical. So you put that in, whether it's your personal statement, my degree has given me good analytical system. The first year I analyze information about the ethics of genetic testing. I summarize this in a 5-minute presentation, okay? We want to really see that on your CV. So I am going to hand over to Chin.
Thank you, Pu. Lots of valuable information there. So I hope everyone's made some notes. So with the cover letter, I know that none of your mics run, but I've heard you all simultaneously sigh at the same time because I know that's what I do and I see it's a requirement. But hopefully that will change when you realize why it is so important. I like to call a cover letter a motivation letter because as opposed to a CV where you have all your skill sets, you have, your degree or, your A-levels or whatever your qualifications may be, and you have a brief little profile at the top on what you've done and just a little bit about you. Your cover letter is really what makes you stand out. As you can imagine, it's very, very competitive in the job market right now, regardless of whatever role it may be. So you've got tons and tons of people applying. So they may even have the same degree as you. I'm pretty sure everyone in the UK has done NCS as well. So what makes you different? And what is your motivation behind that particular role? Now, one thing I want to mention before I forget is please be aware of what you're saving your cover letter as. Because I haven't put this on the slide, so I just want to mention this now, because I think once I was looking at a vacancy and I received an application from a graduate who applied to, I think she applied to Artemis Investment Management, and she obviously applied to our firm and used the same generic cover letter, and that just shows that you don't have attention to detail. We all know that you're applying to lots and lots of firms, but we don't want you to make it so obvious. We want you to tailor it to us, tailor it to the firm, and tailor it to the role. So what we're going to do now is look over an example of a bad CV. And I just want to say beforehand that these are quite exaggerated, but I think we all make these mistakes in much more of a smaller level. So I just wanted to emphasize them. So here we go. Dear Miss Liebman, below, please find my resume, la 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 la. It's definitely time for a career change. I'll cut to the chase. What I'm capable of, blah, 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 blah. And then only average at Excel, what I'm incapable of. Now, I feel like none of you would do this, and this is definitely an exaggerated version of some of the mistakes we make in a cover letter. But I often see people trying to overcompensate for the skills that they don't have, or mentioning that they don't have that skills. So for example, I may not be CFA qualified. Well, you don't need to mention that, and instead turn your weaknesses into a strength. So what I would say instead is, I am currently working towards my CFA, or due to my enthusiasm or passion for investment management, I'm taking up this qualification. So instead of saying that you're only average at Excel, perhaps say that you've learned Excel and you're currently doing this course to enhance your skills. And if you're not incapable of doing HTML, don't mention it. If you're doing a course on it, perhaps mention that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that I think often there is so much pressure of us wanting to stand out and wanting to be different that we sometimes overdo it by being a bit too bold. So, I'm sick of writing these pedestrian cover letters, you're sick of reading them. And I feel that this candidate might have innocently said that to stand out and come across as confident and bold. But I also think that, it depends on what industry you are applying for. If you're applying for a social media manager at BuzzFeed, then, be as creative and as entrepreneurial and, whatever you want to do, please do that. But bear in mind the industry you're working for. And if that's financial services, these hiring managers have very little time and they don't want to see a SoundCloud spoken word on why you're right for the role. They rather you are sensible, really cut to the chase. Why are you good for this role? Why are you motivated? Why do you like the firm? And why are why do you have the transferable skills? So that's just a bit of advice that I'd give. If we could just go to the next bad CV. Thank you. Okay, so first and foremost, way too long. I would say that a good cover letter should be about 3/4 of a page. It doesn't have to be unnecessarily long. It's not a monologue, it's not a dissertation, it's just a letter. And I sometimes feel that when we're reading through these cover letters, you can often see when candidates are trying to make when you're trying to fill out a page and you just want it to be a long page, so you keep repeating yourself. There is no need for that. If you don't have anything more to say, just leave it as half a page or 3/4 of a page, short and sweet. That's absolutely fine. So what I wanted to highlight in this CV is, although they're using lots of big words and writing a lot and talking about competitor analysis or whatever it may be, there is a lot of I. And this is a mistake that I actually used to make when writing my cover letters. And you may be thinking, well, this is your cover letter, you are applying for this, why shouldn't I talk about myself? And absolutely you should talk about yourself, because you are essentially pitching yourself. And I absolutely get that, but there is different ways you can do that. Instead of saying, I am very analytical, you could say, some may say, or you may think that due to my role as, I don't know, head accountant of KCL Music Society, that I'm very analytical, and this can be very transferable into the role here as a data analyst, for example. So try not to use I too many times, and try and sort of, patch that up with other phrases. And try and keep it humble as well, because, end of the day, you're applying to this role, and there are so many different ways of showcasing your skill sets without coming across as too over the top. So if we could just go to the next CV, and this is a good CV. Right, so I would say this is actually a little bit longer as well. I'd probably shorten this a bit, but again, this is a letter, so it's always good to write to someone. If you can see who the hiring manager is, or who the recruiter or HR manager is, I would write it to them just like you would for any other letter. I think more recently, people aren't putting sort of addresses anymore because it's all done online, but if you wish to do that, no one is stopping you. Again, the format here is starting off with talking a little bit about yourself, just summarizing yourself. So here you can see, as a recently graduated biotechnology major at the University of California, I'm excited for this opportunity to work with you. And then talking about how his assignments are basically going to be the future of this company, et cetera, et cetera. So talking about the transferable skills that they have. I would say that if we could just go on to the next slide to look over the structure. So that was quite a lengthy cover letter, but as you can see from there, no grammatical spelling mistakes, and sort of keeping it very brief and to the point, and talking about how you love to do yoga on Sunday may not be relevant unless you're applying to be, a yoga instructor. Make sure it's relevant to the role. Always look at the job description and see what you can pick out. So if they're saying we are looking for someone who is who's got sales skills, well, talk about when you were at university and you might have done some business development for your committee or anything like that. So it always has to be relevant. So try and not sort of go around, because that's something that I used to do. So structure of a cover letter, we normally start off with the contact details, hiring manager, opening paragraph, make it very personal, and make sure it's tailored toward the job, towards the company. And the body is the very important bit. This is where you talk about your key achievements, and why you talk about why you are fit for this particular role. Again, I think it's really important to emphasize that, often we write a cover letter and we probably just send it to all of the firms that we're applying for by just changing, the job description name and sort of the firm name. But if you're really passionate about getting that role, and bearing in mind there is a lot of competition, look through the job description and make sure you really talk about the transferable skills whilst referring to the job spec. And your closing paragraph should be very brief. I look forward to hearing from you. I'd be very grateful if we could arrange an interview, etc., etc. And then, sincerely, John Doe. So that is a structure of a cover letter. I know that was pretty brief, but if there's any sort of burning questions, we can go over that in the Q&A as well.
We have actually a really good question focused on cover letters right here. So I don't know if you want to just answer that, because
Sure.
Do you recommend we research the hiring manager, recruiter, and address the cover letter to them specifically, or is a generic dear whomever it may concern acceptable?
Well, if you're applying through LinkedIn and you can see who the hiring manager is, and you want to show that you've gone through the extra effort of finding out, then do so. Otherwise, you can keep it pretty generic. I think it really depends where you've seen the job advert. If you've seen it online or through a careers portal, then there's no need to do that.
Yeah. Okay. So I am just going to talk a little bit about, and then we're going to get into question and answers. I think there's like 20 questions. We're going to try and get through all of them. And then we've got some like summary tips as well. So if there's anything you wanted to add as well, Chin, about the CVs that I may have forgotten of what to add, or anything else.
I don't think so, Sophie. I think you
think about it. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so let's just think about the next gen. So what does this mean for what's happening in CVs? Now, I've obviously been doing this for 15 years, and I have been reviewing CVs in the same format for 15 years. So what's happening now, just to kind of give you a little bit of a sense of where we're going, there's a lot of blind CV or anonymous CV. So that means that we're just trying to de-bias the process and create more inclusivity within the recruitment processes by taking away the name and maybe the age and things like that, so that we basically don't have these impacting maybe our judgment of that person's CV. So that's just a different thing. So you might see that actually on your application processes, where you might apply somewhere and actually it kind of hides some of that. There are some application tracking software that actually is part of the process for those. Video CVs. Now, I'm obviously a fan because I'm a non-exec for a video CV company, but I think that's definitely the new wave. I know LinkedIn is standard, and there are so many different application tracking systems. You won't even know which ones you're applying to because it will be all white marked with the company's branding. So it doesn't matter. You don't need to know what they are. But what you might start seeing, and this obviously I'm sure it was touched on last week, is actually instead of, so you can do a video CV where you basically talk through who you are as a person. Now, that's not going to be relevant for all roles. Like if you're doing a deep tech role, it really doesn't matter about your presentation kind of skills from that. But if you're applying to an area where it is, maybe client services or sales and marketing or a sales trading floor or something like that, your relationship management, your presentation skills are probably going to be quite important there. So video CVs might crop up, so something to be noting and seeing that could make you stand out from the crowd. And also now what we're seeing is actually as part of the application process, companies are putting in like maybe 4 or 5 questions and they're asking for a video back of you answering those questions. So it's skills-based interviewing, which is actually what a lot of people are now kind of moving away from informal interviewing to the skills-based approach. So that might come up. MP4 presentation is a bit crazy and a bit out there, but it's basically taking your CV and just like this, putting a presentation together, sometimes with moving video and flashing things, and you can even pop up on like a little part of your screen. Rashida, can I just ask you to mute if possible? I've got feedback. Thank you. And the MP4 presentation, that might be something that you could see, and maybe you're seeing some of your peers or your friends are starting to put together these presentations, which are like little videos almost explaining who you are. And then some applicants are not even having CVs at all. So some applications are actually via skills-based approach, and testing your, how will you display that you have the skill set that's needed to do the role, rather than this is what I did this, is listing out the criteria of what you may have done in an experience. And also there's gamified applications. I've seen this used in large companies, large management consultancies actually have gone in and completely changed hiring processes by having a gamified approach, where literally you're in a game and your reaction times and the way that you may process or what you might do when you're in that game actually gives the recruiters, once they've analyzed lots of data and it's been fed back to them by a data analysis team, a really great impact, kind of understanding of who you may be or what kind of decisions you might make when you're in a role. So it's important to think about those kind of things when it comes to CVs as well. And then just, keep it simple, okay? Keep it simple, really state who you are, what you do. Your best thing is to do your research, understand that all the answers are in the job descriptions, use really positive and assertive and affirmative tone and language. Think about the way you speak about yourself, really be positive in that language that you're using. And I think that that's basically all our tips for now, but I'm sure they'll be coming up lots more during the question and answers. So I don't know if you wanted to say anything else, Chin, or we'll pass back to Rashida.
I think it's time for Q&A. So back to Rashida.
Thank you so much, Chin. That was amazing. Everyone can hear me. I can see a few questions have popped up in the Q&A box. So if you are typing it in the chat box, if you don't mind just typing it in our Q&A function, please. So I'm going to start with a few and try and get through as much as possible. If you could take some, Chin, and Upi as well, please. So the first one here that I remember seeing is kind of, I've got volunteering experience. Can that be included in my CV?
I think yes, absolutely, because it adds a bit of personality to your CV as well. We know lots of history grads, but the volunteering experience that you do shows the kind of things that you're passionate about. And yeah, just adds a bit of flavor, I think, onto your CV.
Thank you. Next one is, what are recruiters' take on CVs that mention certain courses done via online learning platforms? Is it advised to mention them even though we are not looking to have certifications through those platforms?
Yeah, definitely. If you're taking the time to upskill yourself and you are, it's something you're interested in. So further on to the last point of the volunteering, your CV is literally your opportunity to tell whoever's reading it who you are. Okay. And that includes your volunteering will say a lot about who you are as a person and what you value. Right. And what your causes that are at your heart. And similarly, what skills you may be doing and how you want to further develop yourself. Absolutely. It's really important to put it on. Now, whether it's you need to list every single thing, if you've done lots and lots and lots, I would basically streamline it. The ones that you think are the most relevant to what you're applying for. But absolutely, this is the way forward, right? We're all doing online learning. We're all doing virtual programming. I did an executive program at business school, all virtually. So I think it's really, really important to think about what you're putting on that, and that's definitely part of it.
Absolutely, thank you. Is it possible to have bullet points and cover letters? I'll put that to you, Chin.
I think yes, unless Upi suggests otherwise. I've seen cover letters where you've had bullet points as well. It's really about the structure. I think as long as you follow the structure, make sure it's not too lengthy, talk positively about yourself, and make sure those bullet points that you do include are relevant to the role and the company. Then yes, absolutely, it's how you want to lay out your cover letter. It's up to you.
Thank you so much, Jen. We've got a few just coming in, so I'm just going to quickly go through them. Is it acceptable that the personal profile part in CV is similar to the opening paragraph of a cover letter? It's a good one.
Should I take that? So I really think a profile is so fundamentally important, especially at your stage. So I think someone was talking about actually how long does someone spend reading a cover letter? Some applications will ask you to have a cover letter, and that's why we're talking about it, because they are important. So that I know that there are some applications that I did in my past that required a cover letter. Now, the cover letter should be succinct. It should say why you are the best person for the opportunity, for the organization, for that industry, for that team, for that sector, whatever it is that you're applying for. That is your cover letter is basically, this is what I've done and this is how I've done it. And then your cover letter is the next stage. You've got another, 30 seconds, 40 seconds to get into that person's brain and convince them that you're the right person for the role. So I definitely think that the profile should be almost like a snapshot. So your profile should be a snapshot of who you are as a career, as a person. So just like, we listed when we did our kind of like intro bullet points. So your profile is like literally, if you were in a meeting, if you were in an elevator with the person that was the hiring manager and they said, tell me about yourself, that's what your profile is, right? It should be like 3 or 4 bullet points or a small kind of 5 or 6 line section at the top of your CV, just under your name, your details, your profile.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Beacon, do you have anything to add?
Nope, I think she covered it all.
Perfect. Okay, so I have another question. Should you talk much about your motivations for that specific company or more about your transferable skills? That's a good one.
Is this for cover letter? I think do both. I think first talk about sort of yourself and why you are applying to this role. Start first and foremost, say for example, I remember with my one, I spoke about sort of their trading system and how I've studied it and how I've studied the trade life cycle and why their firm does it better than the other firms and why I'd like to learn more and get hands-on experience in that particular company. So always make it very specific to that firm, and then you can go on to speaking about how you have the skill sets or transferable skills that are right for that particular role and for that particular company. So you can talk about values. That is something that I often did, and that was my selling point. I always looked into the company's values and how they were similar to mine. I think one of the things that I did when I applied to Amundi, for example, was about their green bonds. So just always look into that company, that's how you stand out, because maybe I don't think other candidates would have written something like that. So yeah, definitely talk about your motivation going for that firm.
Thanks so much, Chin. Got another question. I think this is relevant to so many people. What should I put if I've just come out of university, maybe I've just completed my master's and I don't really have any relevant experience?
Is that on the CV or the cover letter? Do we know? Or kind of maybe both?
Doesn't specify, but probably both. I guess CV more so, yeah.
For your CV, I would have your profile statement, because you can still obviously have that. You don't have to have work experience to have a really good profile statement. Your details, whatever, your education, your languages, your skills, your further learning, I would have that. Memberships, things that you did at university, things that you did during university or school or whatever, anything that you actively got involved in, that's what you want to do. Then taking that and displaying that in your cover letter as well. But your cover letter needs to literally be, it's your chance to respond to the job description, okay, in a really, really active way. And you can acutely say, this is how I have fit this, I did this. So exactly kind of how I was showing you the evidence, like what's the evidence here? So if they're looking for analysis, talk about that in the cover letter. I would definitely do that. Another point for your CVs is when you do have experience to like talk about, what was the outcome in the projects that you worked on? I think I mentioned that, but that's really important way of like, not only like listing what you did, but also, what are the projects? And you can do that without having work experience. You can actually just have a section saying projects, and maybe you worked on lots of different projects. So I would do that if you don't have anything, like, at university, I think Chin mentioned, like, Bursa for this committee within the university, or part of a dance troupe during school. We went around and did this, talk about that. That's what I would do.
Okay, thank you so much. That's spot on. Next question: do we put formal cover letter elements such as your address, etc., even if it's sent via email?
I don't think that's necessary personally anymore. I think previously, I think it was just to show that you're writing a letter. It's just how you formally write a letter. But I tend to not do that anymore. But it's up to you.
Thank you. That's a good question. I haven't thought about that, but I think it is quite an awkward one. So thank you. Okay, there's another one. Would you research on projects done by a firm to show that you've tailored your cover letter?
Absolutely. I think, again, it depends. It has to be relevant. If you're applying to a role in sales and marketing and talk about what they did in risk, maybe not so much. But if you've seen something that they've done in the sales and marketing space that has really blown you away and has made you more passionate about applying to this company, then absolutely. And then you can draw it back to the sales and marketing experience that you have from sort of your transferable skills and your previous experience.
Thank you, Jen. There's a good one now. I might take this one. Do you think sacrificing the profile summary to fit your CV on one page worth is it? I remember I didn't have actually a profile at a point, but then everyone I did give my CV to review, they were like, you should really have a profile, because I do think it's important. Because and for example, we did say it takes 6 seconds for you to look at your CV. If they don't get down there, at least they can see, oh, I did this degree, or you have, maybe say Bloomberg experience or something, or you completed a qualification that would have been in your profile bit. What do you think, Hopi and Chen?
No, I would say exactly the same thing that you said. I would definitely put. I always encourage, if people don't have a personal statement or a profile, I make them write it, or I write it. So when you're actually, if you're going through the application process and you're sending your CV, if you then decide to start using recruiters like myself or Chin, or whoever may be at the right level for you, we will write a personal statement for you, because that's our job. So if you don't have it there, normally we would take out elements of what you've written there, and obviously obviously parts of our either the interview or the calls that we've had with you, and we'll put that together to create a really nice kind of snapshot of who you are. So when the hiring manager reads your CV, they will actually go through, so they'll have all your kind of baseline details. So if you've told me that actually you really enjoy this sport, and I know that that is a sport that person has told me about, I might mention it and go, actually, they've just told me that they've just done this. I might include that. Or if you've got a skill or you're training or you're doing something like you're sitting your IMC, or you've decided to do an online course in a programming language that's relevant to that department, I will write that in, currently sitting this or currently doing this. I'll add that in. So definitely put that in there. I think it should be there. There's a couple of others actually that are really similar, which I might just quickly pick up, Rashida, that I've just seen that's in the same line. Someone has asked about if I put awards on my CV, how far should I go back? And I think you should just, I don't know how many awards you have. That sounds like you're an absolute rock star. So put as many as you want, really. And then someone said to optimize the number of pages, can I skip certain sections, which I think is in a similar vein to the first question, such as interest and memberships. You don't need to. This is not like you have to have every single section. This is like what would be good. So if it's not relevant to you or you don't feel like it actually sits with you, don't add it in.
Okay, next one is, should we include a link to our LinkedIn profile? I'm always in between there, but I think it's really good, especially if you do post on your LinkedIn profile. They can just kind of get a feel of you. What about you, Etienne? Do you always put in your LinkedIn profile in your CV?
Yes, but please make sure you check through your LinkedIn profile before you do so, because everything will be held against you. So please make sure you check through that. Yeah.
Another thing to add to that is, I think we forgot to say this, that to make your CV in a PDF readable format, not writable, a PDF readable format, and there you can actually hyperlink into that. So definitely sorry, I meant to mention that, make sure the links work, but you can add those links in like to your name, and you can, underline it, and it can be a link to your LinkedIn profile, or you can have a little LinkedIn logo, and that could take them directly to your LinkedIn profile if it's a readable PDF.
Okay, thank you guys. Should CVs be written with one section under another, or should we be putting in boxes, or are boxes a no-go?
I'm not quite sure I understand what you mean by sections and boxes, but I would say if you look at sort of Upi's first few slides, I think it's just making it very clear the different sections that you do have, whether you put it in boxes or make it very clear that you've got different sections. It's up to you, but increasingly, I think, especially with graduates, some of the clients that I've worked with in the past are wanting to see CVs in its raw format. So I think formats are very, very important as well, because sometimes even though recruiters like myself and Upi will sort of format your CV and sort of do profiles for you, nowadays, I think employers want to see how you format your CV as well, because it shows your presentation skills. So definitely make sure you do that.
And actually, to point further on that, so obviously when I started in the industry, this was a long time ago, and we would always reformat the CVs into our own generic format. I actually have lots of clients now. There's this particular hedge fund that I'm working with, and they want to see the original format. I need to keep it completely untouched. So if you have spelling errors or some kind of formatting looks weird, I would normally correct that. For some companies and clients that I work with, I can't do that. I have to send it as is. So it's just really important to make sure that you have done all of this kind of like hard work up front.
Absolutely, agree. Thanks, guys. Another question, is it relevant to put some of the modules that are relevant to the job you're applying to in CV? I would say yes, absolutely. If you did, I don't know, maybe kind of like a finance module and you're applying for banking, then I think it's definitely relevant.
Rashida, I want to take one of these questions only because I'm passionate about it, and that's when
of course, go on.
And I think someone said, I'm changing my field from engineering to business. Which experiences can I add in my CV? And I saw quite a few similar questions above when you're trying to change the field. I've done this 3 times. And I think what I like to do is transferable skills. I've said this probably 50 times in this webinar, but I'm going to say it again. Especially if you're junior as well, there are so many transferable skills that you gain from each of your roles. There is a reason why, you know, firms like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs hire people straight out of the military, because they don't have knowledge on equity sales and trading. So why are they hiring them? Well, it's because they have a lot of determination, they have resilience, they have, you know, all these other transferable skills that are needed for leadership roles. So please don't give up, because there's been times where I've applied for numerous sort of asset management roles and even executive search roles. And I thought, well, I've never done it before. But that's where you can stand out in your cover letter. So although you may be doing your engineering job right now, in your cover letter, talk about how your analytical skills as an engineer is going to help you with the role that you're doing right now, or any of the courses that you're doing. So yeah, and actually, I think that people and hiring managers want to hire people from different backgrounds. They don't want to hire so many similar people all the time, because you provide a different perspective. So please keep that in mind and apply away.
That's nice. I have another one. Do I need to quantify my work experience? So, for example, I guess you're aiming at the fact that maybe you completed a work and you increased targets by, I don't know, 50. You reached your target by, or exceeded your target by 50%. I would 100% say you should quantify your achievements. I think it looks good, and it looks like, and it looks real, like you actually did make a difference in whatever you were doing. This is an interesting question. I don't know the answer either. Do hiring managers still print off CVs, or do they review them through a computer as I create hyperlinks to a blog I have written?
Should I take that? There's so much ESG governance going around, and all of, like, you know, so it'd be environmentally completely unfriendly and against all of our ethics in the industry to be printing off CVs when we really don't need to. And to be honest, most people review stuff, especially hiring managers, review it on their phones. So a lot of it will be there. So your hyperlinks are absolutely fine. They will work. Very unlikely that it will be printed off. There are definitely some managers that will still want to print it off because that's what they're just used to. But it'll be less and less. Everybody's reviewing everything online right now. There's another question which I'll pick up at the same time. Someone just said, are online virtual work experience just as valuable and useful to mention on your CV? Absolutely, if not more valuable. So right now, in the way that we're working, everybody is remote, everybody is part remote. There are very few of the investment companies that are completely back in the office. Most are doing kind of structured or diverged hours with their colleagues because of kind of COVID capacities within the office spaces that they currently have. So virtual work experience, online work experience, do not discount it at all. It is completely relevant to have online remote work experience as much as it is to have traditional experience. So definitely add it all in.
Thanks, Sophie. Another one, do they put cover letters through, is it AI and Boolean search as well, or is it just CVs? I'll give it to you, Chin.
Well, in my experience, mainly we use Boolean searches for CVs, as that's the most, so say for example, we take Reed or eFinancial, when we're using Boolean searches, it normally is tagged to your CV. But I'm not entirely sure whether people do that with cover letters. In my experience, no, but maybe Upi, you can shed some light on that.
It depends if you're uploading it. If you're uploading it to the same program, yes, it will definitely click through. The AI will go through whatever documents it has and it will capture it. So if it's your CV and that is what is being assessed in, and you have to put CV in a different box to cover letter, then it probably will be your CV that gets passed, and then your cover letter will be reviewed if you fit the criteria. So remember to be really specific and like make sure you have that information you're putting into your CV, your cover letter, make sure it's also in your CV. So tailor, like this is what we're talking about, like have your CV. So we're gonna ask you a question at the end of this, couple of questions, but have your kind of framework, okay? So your like base of your CV, and with every single application that say if they're slightly different, you want to put that in. And then your cover letter should be really directly answering to the role and the organization and why that organization, a lot like just like Chin said, like, you know, your values or something aligns.
Thank you both. What is the appropriate spacing for cover letters? I'll put that to you, Jenny.
Okay.
You can take this one.
I think it's just normal single spacing, right? I think I was going to say that. Someone else asked about double spacing. Don't double space anything. Just single space it all, and obviously put breaks in where you need to.
Yeah, thank you, guys. What do you do in a situation when you just have too much and it is relevant? How do you kind of pick between what to drop out, or do you just let it go to 3 pages?
Definitely don't let it get to, I mean, it depends on your level. If you're a graduate, I'd still say stick to 1 page. I had a similar experience because I did so many extracurricular things and I just wanted them to know that I did all of these things, but pick up the most relevant one, maybe one interesting one. And you don't need to write paragraphs and paragraphs about your experience. If you do want to include them all, maybe just write 1 brief sentence and just include the relevant ones to that role, because even though you are a qualified yoga instructor, they will probably pick the fact that you've done your IMC over that. So just make sure you prioritize which ones are relevant.
Should we try to address all the job requirements in the cover letter? I know I've definitely gone through this where I've seen a whole list and I'm like, maybe I should put in something as an example that I've done it. But again, that cover letter can get very long and not punchy. So what would be your take on it? Okay.
Sorry, can you just repeat that? Sorry.
No worries. I think questions just run away from me. Should we try to address all job requirements in a cover letter?
Oh, sorry. No, I was just reading that one. Yeah. No, you shouldn't. Don't feel like you need to go through the whole job description. Definitely don't do that. Okay. Because that's just a waste of your time. Pick out the ones that really, like, we don't want you to try and make something up here. You've got to be true to yourself. They're going to hire you. When you get to the interview, you might get the interview, and then when they get to you, they're like, you didn't really, what? There's like a misconnect. So really only pick up the things that really stand out to you and go, oh, I can do this, or I've done this, or maybe I can apply this. Pick those up. Pick up the most things that kind of align to what, you feel that is your message, like we were talking about. So what is your message? So understand, this is my skill set. This is their needs. What is my message? Remember that sweet spot? So think about, what do I need to pick out from my experience and from what they're looking for to get to that bit in the middle?
Thank you, Effie. I'm not sure either one can take, either one of you can take it. Could you explain how these HR algorithms work, and which words are they looking for in CVs, or from your experience when you've done it, what kind of words do pop out that you like seeing?
I think UP is definitely the best answer.
Okay, so I'm building a tech platform. So this is the reason that I kind of have done a lot of research into this. It's relevant. So what's going to stand out is going to be what they're searching. Okay, so if it's your CV is in a talent pool of theirs, whatever they're searching for, like, so I think Chin mentioned eFinancial Careers. So a recruiter would go in and say, if they're looking for a graduate that's had maybe an internship in a sales trading desk, like Chin, I would find her CV if she was on that platform. So it really depends on what they're looking for. So if that's in your CV, then that's great. So what you want to try and make sure that, as long as it's relevant, that if it's in the job description, remember, like we said, that's all the answers are there. Okay. That's what they're going to search for. So they'll have like parameters set of what they're looking for in terms of keywords or industry or level of years of experience, or a language skill maybe, or something like that. And if that picks that up in your CV, then that's how you'll be put into the shortlist. So it's literally just picking up from what they're telling you they're looking for. That's how they will set the parameters.
Thank you, Sophie, that's good to know. Next question, are there any tips on how to approach applications which require one cover letter for multiple divisions, such as e.g. Goldman Sachs, especially if you want it to make it detailed and tailored enough? I'll put that to you, Chin.
Sure. So I think when I applied for my role, it was pretty generic as well. In that case, make it about the company, I'd say. Make it all about the company. I did tons and tons of research. This is my go-to technique. I do tons and tons of research about the company that other people may not know. So if there's a merger going on, everyone knows that's going on. I try to look at specific detailed things that even the hiring manager might not know. So I remember when I did mine, I found out about this new tech system that they were building to enhance and sort of make the mid-office space a lot more efficient. So I spoke about that, and I spoke about why that fascinates me and how they're, putting finance and tech together. Talk about that, because there's, just because you're applying for multiple divisions, you're applying at the same company. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you, Jen. Next question, do you recommend we have themes, colours for your CV? I would say a major no. I'm not sure if you guys differ with that answer.
I mean, mine's blue and it's blue throughout. I don't know if you mean sort of with each section doing a different color, and in that case, no. But with Microsoft Word, they do have this option where you can format all of your sections in a particular format. I know it sounds like I'm going on about it, but if you go onto Word, you will see that if you highlight everything, there are options for you to format it in that sense. So you can make it blue. I'd say don't make it pink, just make it a sensible sort of professional color.
That's interesting. I say that because I've always gone for no color, just black and white. Absolutely have no colors. So to hear that people kind of do, would you say if you did see a colorful or one color CV, would you rather go for the plain one, or no preference?
By the way, when I say that, I don't mean I make my text blue or anything. I mean just my header is like a sort of like a dark blue. I just like to keep the same theme throughout the entire thing. Nothing too bold. And I think, Rashida, what you did is probably sensible, and you're not taking any risks with that one. So yeah.
I would stay away from color. I would stay away from color. I think, especially if you're applying for a role in the investment industry or even a tech company, there are lots of other industries. So like advertising, I've seen lots and lots of CVs from there because I worked on a project for something, and everybody's was like real design led, but that was the whole part of the fact that that's kind of the roles they're applying for. So it really depends on that. With investment, black and white, and you literally use those colors like we showed you, like those lines in between if you want to add color. Of course, a color on a CV is going to stand out from a pile of black and white CVs. It's the juxtaposition, right? But don't go too over the top, because actually sometimes that can be a bit jarring if it's too bright, like if you've got a full yellow page or something like that.
Thank you both. Next one, should you list and mention any insight days you have attended, or group them under one category, showing what you have learned? So this is in the CV. So mentioning insight days, I would say yeah. I guess I'm trying to grouping them under one category. I think they will just fall under your experience, if I'm correct. I haven't actually split my CV into insight or experience. I just pop it all under experience. I think I'm correct to say that.
I would, if you've done lots of project work, I would put experience, and I'd put either within, like, say if you've got different like internships or whatever it might be, or even work experience, I would put like at the top of like the role, I would work on the projects that you've done. I think that's really important to think about, because when you work in some of these organizations, you will be put onto different projects. So the fact that you can show, collaboration with this amount of team members across, global regions, working on the development of or the implementation of a new tech tool or whatever it might be within that specific space, or a new, understanding like a platform or something, I would definitely highlight that. So whether it's in each skill, it's obviously relevant to the role. I would put it within the role. So either at the top as like projects, and then, then you afterwards you list all your things, or you put, it's either way, it doesn't matter as long as it's there. Or you could do it separately. You could have your work experience, and then you could have under the work experience, like maybe just underlined projects and then other things that you've done.
Okay. I think this question's a good one. What if someone has 4 internships during undergrad and 3 years of experience? In that case, would you also advise a 1-page CV?
I would say yes. I think you can still, it's about, I know it's hard because you want to talk about everything that you've did, but there's always a way to sort of minimize it, just try and sort of keep it to 1 line. I think you will still be able to fit that on that 1 page.
I would say that if it's really relevant and important to the role, then don't worry about it. Like 2 pages is still fine. If you've got 3 years of experience and 4 internships, I think it's going to be a 2-page CV, in all honesty. I think if you've got 1 internship and maybe 1 experience, then I think you could do a 1-page. But I think it sounds like you've got 3 years and 4 internships, then I think that, don't you think it would probably fall into a 2? Because you want to, like, you could literally just do the titles, but I think it's really important about, what did you do actually in that? And what was the outcome? What was that? So I would say 2.
Apologies, I didn't hear that you had 3 years. Then I would agree. Yeah. There was another thing that I just picked up, which I think we should definitely mention, because there's lots of people from around the globe. Someone has said that if someone non-British citizen is applying for jobs in the UK, it's important to mention whether visa sponsorship is or isn't required. Further, if needs someone visa sponsorship, will the application be screened outright? Sometimes, yes, actually, it will be screened outright because they may just have a thing on no sponsorship, UK, British citizens, or whatever it might be. I would definitely put that on your CV. So where you have your name and details, or you could put it, at the bottom where it says references and say visa sponsorship required. You should definitely have that on your CV, because that is fundamentally, you're not only going to be able to apply. A lot of when you apply as well now, it will say, what's your nationality? Do you require sponsorship to work in the location listed for the role? So you will have to declare it there. Don't hide that, just declare it. There are cases where I have worked on graduate roles with, which company was this? It's gone out of my head. They're on Wigmore Street behind, do you know what I'm talking about? They're behind Selfridges. And I placed lots and lots and lots of actually grads into one of their teams. And they did take someone who needed visa sponsorship purely because that person was phenomenal. But then what actually has to happen is we have to prove, so it's a big kind of thing that we have to prove that actually there was no other suitable applicants, and that it was listed for this amount of days on public websites. And this is, there was no, so that's how visa sponsorship works. You need to do like quite a lengthy process, but it happens. It happens all the time. Visa sponsorship is very, very, very normal. So don't feel like, oh, I don't want to declare it. Definitely declare it. Okay, it's not a hindrance.
Okay, thank you so much for taking that question. It was important. Another quick question. I know we have a few, just to jam in as much as possible, so we'll just keep them answers quite short. There was this one, which was, how do I kind of quantify or mention experience if it doesn't have a quantitative outcome? So if it has a qualitative outcome, do I put, it was successful, or how would you kind of pose it in your, I guess, CV at CV? Yeah, could be relevant to the cover letter. Do you want to take that, please?
Yeah, I don't think so if it's qualitative, then that's absolutely fine, okay? Because some of these things, you know, there's always gray areas. But the outcome is still there. So what was the outcome? What was the learning for you? Maybe that's what you share. If there's not a quantifiable, oh, we increased this within this team, or we implemented this, etc. What was the outcome for you? What did you learn during that process? What were the skills you gained? That's what I would do. That would be the outcome.
Yeah, thank you so much, Opi. Another question is, this person hasn't changed their CV in a while and they're looking for executive roles. Are there any tips on how to change one's CV for such roles?
I think Opi,
you want to go for that, Jen?
Sorry, what does it say?
So I haven't changed my CV for a while, and the person is now looking for an executive role. Are there any tips on how to change one's CV for such roles?
I think you just need to update it, right? If you haven't changed your CV for a while, then this is probably where you start. You know, we've given you lots and lots of different tips of how you should do that. Think about the way that you structure it, the way you format it. Really put in these projects. If you're, you know, going up to, I think you said executive level, then or experienced professional, you probably have lots and lots of experience of doing, you know, working on different things, and where there's outcome based, whether it's qualitative or quantitative. So you can evidence that. So you literally maybe need to rewrite it completely, and even go back. So this is really important. So when you're maybe 3-4 years in your career and you take your CV and you want to move again, or whatever it might be, don't keep the bits that were there before. Like, you can keep them, but go through and think about, okay, when I wrote that, maybe I was in a different headspace. So what would I put now? And there might be other things that might be important that you would put in. You know, I reformatted my CV after many, many years, and I added in things that I didn't think was important back then, but now is really relevant. So definitely update your whole thing. So don't just go, oh, I need to add in this last piece of work that I've done, or the last 5 years, or whatever it is, or 2 years. Go back and redo it all.
Thank you so much. I think I'm going to take maybe like 1 or 2 questions. I'll just find a few short ones. In the case of someone who's a new entrant or switching a career, is there any specific tips for CV/cover letter to get to stand out of the crowds?
I think we covered that one, but again, just to proof it up, transferable skills. What can you bring from that role to this role that is relevant? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Let's see if we can try and find one more. Okay, do you want to go?
Oh, sorry, someone has just asked what format should your CV be in. I think we mentioned this. Put it in PDF, not in Word. PDF.
Could we give information about our dissertations in our CV? Would you say that's a thumbs up or not, or just mention the title of the dissertation?
Yes, I think a lot of people do that because they're very proud of what they've written about. Yeah, I think it's fine. Not too lengthy. You just write the title. I think that's probably enough.
Okay, thank you so much, Jim. I think one has just come up. Would you recommend the use of CV professional services?
I don't know if you necessarily, there's so much information available online. You're doing this course, so we should have a lot of information here. You can find so much. Feel free to use a professional CV service if you feel that you need that support. But in all honesty, just start. You know, we've given you some good kind of pointers and tips of your cover letter and your CV. Create that first. And if you think that needs more work, then definitely do that. Speak to your peers, okay? Speak to your friends and ask them, and maybe ask people that you know to give you help on that. Think about also, so I know all of us on this call are really focused on network and connections. And so I want you to think about, okay, who do I know? Who could I ask for advice? Do I have a mentor? Think about those kind of people. Who can you go to for advice? Because you might actually get other bits of advice that you didn't even think you were looking for at the time. And then also even people that work at the organization. You know, if there's someone that you're connected to, or they might be alumni, and you find them on LinkedIn, or you start having a connection with them, maybe you're on Clubhouse and you speak to someone, or, you know, wherever it might be, or whatever whatever social platform you're on, and you connect with someone that works at the organization you're trying to apply for, ask them. Don't be afraid to ask people. Doesn't mean you inundate people's DMs and inboxes on LinkedIn, because they sometimes probably won't even answer. But try and be tailored with that, and use the kind of the connections you have around you to help kind of sense check that as well.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Just before we go, we always ask our kind of panelists one question. What did you want to be when you were growing up? I'll start off. So I wanted to be an engineer and a diplomat. What about you, Chin?
I'm oversharing, and I don't know why I'm exposing myself at all. I wanted to be an astronaut at first, which is very sensible and pretty cool. But then there was a brief 4-year period where I really wanted to be Beyonce, and was just so frustrated at the fact that I wasn't Beyonce. And that dream still exists to today. So watch this space. CV, cover letter, and pop star and then
Adepi, what did you want to be?
So I wanted to be an air hostess. I wanted to travel the world. Or I wanted to be, in all honesty, I wanted to be a rich housewife with a rich husband, but he traveled the world. That's basically what I wanted to do. I definitely don't have that. But you land where you land, and I wouldn't change what I do for the world. I absolutely love it. So find a career and find a job that you love. If it doesn't feel right for you, take as much of that learning as you can, and then you'll find your purpose. But you're really young, so experiment and do what you can, and just make, to enjoy the journey, basically.
Thank you so much, guys. So we're coming to the end of this session. Thank you so much all for kind of signing up and logging in. I hope this has been useful. And as I mentioned before, we do have a free cover letter and CV checking service, in which we will send out the details to everyone's inbox shortly. So please do check that. And don't forget, we are back in September for our most ambitious session yet, which is our virtual careers fair, where we'll have 43 different firms. Each weekday is dedicated to one firm. Come along, ask questions, hear about their roles, and how they recruit, so you have that added advantage when you do apply. And all the details can be found on the Skills Workshop website. And also, please do follow us on LinkedIn, email us, and also follow the Skills Workshop on LinkedIn. And I hope you all had a great session. And I just wanted to say thank you so much to Chin and Upi for taking your time to take us through CVs and cover letters. It has been absolutely wonderful, and it's been very useful. Thank you so much. I hope everyone has had fun and everyone has a wonderful evening. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you all for joining us. Good luck.
Good luck. Bye-bye.
Bye.